the man of God. And one thing that we can attest and what we've seen is God speak in the house.
Yeah.
How many of us truly believe that God is still speaking?
Amen.
Hallelujah. And God is still instructing us and giving us that in which we need to stand before Him one day and to be received. Amen.
Amen.
You know, they give us an acronym for the word Bible, and it's basic instructions before leaving earth.
Amen.
And I believe that the labor that the man of God will give us today is some instructions before we leave this earth, something that we can put in our belt, something we can put, you know, in our life and we can apply it.
Amen.
So right now I want to call before you a mighty man of God, strong man of God,
Yes.
powerful man of God,
Amen.
a comedian.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
He gonna have us rolling, he might have us crying, but just somebody say stay open.
Stay open.
Stay open.
And that's what we want to do. We want to stay open to receive. Amen. I want to call up Pastor Lawrence Hadnott. God bless you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Get something microphone. You ain't gonna use all three, huh?
Nah. I really don't need this one here, man. Y'all may be seated. Y'all may be seated. And first giving honor to God,
Amen.
who
Amen.
is the head of my life.
Glory. Hallelujah.
And of course, giving due recognition to the overseer
Bless you,
and the
sir.
overseeress, Pastor Quinn, and his beautiful wife, which is my sister.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Amen.
And I say it all the time, they're my nickels.
Glory.
Uh,
Y'all ready?
He done started already.
To Pastor Cade in his absence, man. And he's physically absent, but we know in spirit.
Oh, man, yeah. All over the
And
place.
really not physically, because there's so many seeds of the Cade
Yeah.
house called the Cade clan.
Cade clan.
Bless you.
Man, most importantly, the body.
Yeah.
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 So what about that? Thank God for y'all, man.
Yeah.
Amen.
Because each and every last one of y'all had to go through something to get right here in this moment.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go through something to get here, I'm not going to go through something without getting something out of it. Right?
Come on.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about too, man. But if y'all don't mind, I want to share a story with y'all. Can I do that? And let me shout out my brother Quincy. Brother Quincy.
Amen. Bless you. Glory.
You want me? Okay.
Yeah.
Man and Tab done hooked me up with this nice shirt. Man, she done hooked me up. And my goddaughter say I gotta wear the bracelet she made me a bracelet, so I thank you guys both. But I wanna start off with a story. It's about a mountain climber. And the mountain climber had him and a couple of friends. They got together and they decided what they were going to do was they were going to actually climb 2 mountains. They were going to climb 2 mountains. Now, climbing 1 mountain is especially hard in itself. But when you talk about 2 mountains, I don't know if I'm signing up for that. But they got together and they said, first of all, they're going to drive to the first mountain. So they get in the car, get in the cruising, they drive to the first mountain, and they start to proceed to climb the first mountain. So as they're climbing the first mountain, they're getting weak, they're getting exhausted, but they make it to the top of their first mountain.
Okay.
Now, I want to center this story around a guy named Mike. Let's just call him Mike. I don't know, it go with Mountain. Mike. 2 M's, every name. So Mountain Mike is not treating his mountain like the rest of the people are treating their mountain. See, the rest of his friends, they start to celebrate. The rest of the friends, they start to kind of rest on their laurels. They thought they made it. But they forgot that it's 2 mountains. It's 2 mountains. They drove to the first mountain, okay? But the second mountain, in between the second mountain and the first mountain, is the wilderness. It's a valley. So Mountain Mike, he's doing something strange in this moment. They're celebrating. He's taking pictures. But he's not taking pictures of anything on the mountain, but he's taking pictures of what's between the mountain. So as they get ready to prepare for the next journey, will be the transition into the wilderness. You know, they start on their way, and you know how it is when you start the fresh journey. Everybody's enthusiastic. Everybody got energy. It's praise God. It's our rainbows and lollipops. But what Mike did while he was on top of that other mountain, he took the picture that he was taking and he stuck it in his pocket. So as they start to go further into this wilderness, they get to a certain point where they hit a roadblock and an obstacle and a different circumstance. And Mike would go to that pocket, take out the picture, and he would look at the picture. But one of his friends would fall to the wayside. So they'll repeat the pattern. Mike will hit a rough patch. They'll hit an obstacle and another circumstance, a challenge. And he'll take his hand and he'll go in his pocket and he'll flip out that picture and then he'll keep moving. And one of his friends will fall by the wayside. And you already know what happened the third time. And this continues to happen until Mike is the only one left. So later on, after making it to the second mountain and being the only one to do it, his friends asked him, what in the world was that in your pocket that made you keep going? And Mike says, you care to see, I'll show you. So he pulls out the picture out of his pocket and he shows it to his friends. And his friends say, I can't see nothing. His friends say, I can't make this out. What am I looking at? And Mike, with a smirk on his face, says, exactly. The same thing that caused you to quit. The same thing that looks so big and intimidating and threatening. The same thing that was that obstacle that made you say, I'm turning back and I'm not going to complete this assignment. From the proper perspective, from our proper destination, that same thing don't look like nothing. Mike was saying, in other words, I knew that one day I would be standing over the thing that I was standing in and it wouldn't look so big. So what are you saying? I'm saying what we need to do like Mike do. We need to learn the power of perception.
That's good.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
The
power of perception. The power of not just seeing things the right way, but seeing things from the right view.
Come on now.
The Bible says this. The Bible says that we are seated in heavenly places.
That's right. Yes.
So if we are seated in heavenly places, then our attitudes and our mindsets and everything else should be seated with us. But how is it we let these earthly things get to us so bad that we turn around on the vision that God gave? We're going to be coming out of, let me get it. We're going to be coming out of Numbers 13, 25 through 33. Children of Israel who happen to have a problem with perception. A problem with perception. And as you go to the scripture, Numbers 13, 25 through 33. And also, let me shout out my wife. I am so sorry.
That's her.
My wife of 15 years.
That's her.
Come on,
I thank God for you. I am so sorry, man. That you and really, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.
Wow.
Her love, her support, her constant prayers. Man, I mean, when we fight demons back to back.
Come on.
And that's what a wife is for. So I thank God for you.
Amen.
I thank God for you.
Keep them demons off of her.
Man.
You good?
So Everybody have it?
Amen.
Everybody got it. Cool, cool. All right. And they returned from spying, they being the children of Israel. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Somebody say 40 days.
40 days.
Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all of the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran of Kadesh, that brought them back a word to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Now, when they're talking about fruit of the land, they're talking about a cluster of grapes that were so big that it took 2 men to carry.
Yeah.
Like literally, they had a stick, and one was on one dude's shoulder, the other side of the stick was on another guy's shoulder, and in between that was a cluster of grapes. That's what the fruit of the land was. And then he said, then they told him and said, we went to the land where you sent us. Look, it truly flows with milk and honey. And this is the fruit. They got proof. Nevertheless, oh my God. Now, the one thing you don't want to hear after getting a good report is nevertheless. He says, nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. Their cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Hadnott there. I always struggle with this, y'all. Everybody except mosquito bite. The Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell. Now, Canaanites. I want to put a pin right there. That tribe is going to be particularly interesting because the Canaanites are the people who are occupying their destiny right now. Like the position that the Canaanites are in, that's supposed to be the children of Israel. Matter of fact, God has promised that that's supposed to be you. Yeah. So the Canaanites, where were we? Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. Look at Caleb. Man, you gotta love Caleb. Caleb, shh, be quiet. Caleb quieted the people for Moses, and he said, let us go up at once. He's talking about right now, and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. Look at this. But the same men that was with Caleb, how they were. Come on. So they were looking at the same thing but getting 2 different reports. The same people that were with Caleb said, but the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against these people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land. Now, how you do that? You just gave a good report. Now you're switching it around because, I get to it. I ain't going to go into it. Okay, and they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies, it is a land that devour its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the giants. He said the giants. Do you know his record with giants? Do you know God's record with giants? Come on. Do you know what he can do with a little to take out something that you think is a lot? Okay, so he said, there we saw the giants. And the descendants of Hadnott came from the giants. And we were like grasshoppers in what? Not. Oh my God. In our own sight. I mean, because this is it. This is about the power of perception. And we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in theirs. You may be seated. You may be seated. The power of perception. The power of perception. Man, there's a quote, and the quote goes like this. It says that perception is the lens in which we see the world. Perception is the lens in which we see the world. But it's not only the lens in which we see the world, but it's the lens in which we see ourselves. It's the lens in which we see God. It's the lens in which we see the enemy. Perception is not just the lens in which we see the world, but it's the lens in which we see everything.
Yeah.
And the good news about perception is that perception has the power to shape and mold our reality.
Right.
Good news.
Yes.
The bad news about perception is that perception has the power to shape and mold our reality.
Yeah.
The same thing that is good can be bad depending on your what? Your lens, your perception. Let's start it off like this. I'm gonna call somebody out already. Come on. Oh yeah, it's going down. Come on, come on, stop playing before I go back there and get you. Come on. Nah, Ashley know who I'm talking about. She got the big smile on her face right now. Ashley. Okay, I'm gonna give you an example of perception. Give you an example of perception. Come on, Ashley. Let's go.
Come on. She got shoes off and everything.
That don't matter.
Come on.
I seen crust their feet. Right. All right. Now, somebody who don't mind us using their phone? We're just taking a picture. We're just gonna take a picture. All right, appreciate you, Q-Zone. All right. Now, since you looking good, put your nose up. Don't he look good, y'all?
Yeah.
Man, look at this boy.
Amen.
Woo!
Amen.
Oh, I got cut. Come here. Okay. So we all agree that he's looking good today. So what I want you to do is to take a picture. Step, turn around, take a picture of him. You know how to take pictures.
Yes, she
You
did.
know how to take pictures of yourself? That's what. Let me get out the way. Now let me see that. Oh my God, man. This boy look good. Okay, so look at this. We agree?
Let me see.
Man, come on, that deserves a hand clap.
Let me see.
Look at that boy. Man, you know you own when you do your head like this. You know you own. Okay, cool. Thank you, kid. Take a picture with mine. Take a picture with mine. Oh my God. Did you see what she just did? That's it right there. And if we can learn to do this in the spirit, what she did in 5 seconds, it takes some. Instead of going to him and say, maybe lose the tie, she checked the lens.
Bring it on home.
See, as long as we have a problem with the lens, everything else is going to be messed up. As long as we're seeing things through a broken lens, everything will appear to be broken.
Paint the picture.
As long as we're seeing things through a corrupted lens, everything will appear to be corrupted. But what we do is we take an issue with the Lord when the issue is with the lens. And we change everything that's sitting in front of the lens instead of checking the lens itself. It took her five seconds to figure this out. What some people can't figure out in a lifetime. Some people die with a dirty lens. Thank you guys.
Perception.
Wow.
You better get on.
Perception.
I got your hand behind that for real. Perception. So, have you ever met somebody who, no matter what you do, they just complain?
Oh man, I stay away from them.
Man, everybody knows somebody like that. Better not be talking about me though.
I can give you something positive, move around.
No matter what they do, they murder.
Always something.
And if it's you, we're not picking on you because I've been in that place before. But what I am telling you, if you want to fix it, you have to fix your lens.
Yeah.
Because how do we try to fix it usually? Okay, well we'll change people.
Yeah.
We'll change places.
Yeah.
We will change everything except the one thing that has the power to change everything. And that's our mind,
That's
our
good,
perception,
Pastor
the lens in which we're seeing things. I love how the Bible puts it. It starts talking about doing something. What we all need to do is take an inventory. And I love when they say to cast down imaginations.
Ooh-wee.
Speak down, God.
Cast down imaginations. Sometimes it's not what you're seeing, it's how you're seeing.
Oh. Yeah.
I'll make it very plain to you. I'll use my personal life.
Make it plain.
I recall vividly, Queen. I recall when my mom had cancer, I prayed for healing. I prayed for deliverance. But I was praying with a broken lens. So when my mom, who was a devout Christian, died, I blamed God. I even took it to God like Job said he was going to do. Word, I honored them to the T. You asked for healing. You asked for deliverance. What better place to be than with the Father? Yeah, we don't want to hear that though. Yeah. We want our wants. We want our desires. We want God to sugarcoat it. But He came to me with the truth, and it was up to me. It was up to me. I could have kept in my own ways. And try to change God. And Q, you say this all the time. You say one of the most profound things I ever said was, if He did not change His will for His own Son, who was perfect and holy, then who am I? Yeah. If He could have saved His Son, but He let Him go through what He needed to go through to accomplish His will, then who am I? See, what I needed to do was check my lens, because it was not a problem with the Lord, it was a problem with the lens. And as long as you have a problem with the lens, you'll always have a problem with your life. So we go to the scripture, Numbers 13:30 and 31. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses, and said, let us go at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against these people, for they are stronger than we are. That's a bad lens. And not only is it a bad lens, but nothing that God had ever done for them up to that point should have projected that type of fear. See, sometimes we need to learn this, and this is the first point. We need to learn to stop seeing and start perceiving.
Amen. Right. Amen.
Stop seeing and start perceiving. Seeing is something that you do, and it's called eyesight. Eyesight. Come on, Chris, you know about it. But perceiving is a little different. It has nothing to do with eyesight, but it has everything to do with insight. And insight only comes from having a personal relationship with someone.
Amen.
So what it is, it doesn't matter what this is what perception says. Perception says it don't matter what you place in front of me. I'ma always go with the answer I know about this person. Okay, children of Israel, it don't matter that Pharaoh's army is right behind you and there's a Red Sea. Perception says, I'm not going with what I see, I'm going with what I perceive. And what I perceive, if God has already done it, He'll do it again.
Come on now.
Amen. Seeing, but not perceiving. This was their problem. And look, they were so close, bro. So, there we go. It was right there. Imagine being on the brink of your breakthrough.
Wow.
on the border of every blessing you have ever desired, on the edge of everything that you've ever asked from God. You're literally at the threshold of your testimony, right? And look at here, they had already gone through hell and high water. They've been through pain and persecution, all to get to this point where they're close to the promise. And now they're sitting at the doorstep of their divine destiny. But instead of dwelling in their divine destiny, they died at the doorstep. See, this is the case for the children of Israel. And it's only because they were always seeing, but they were never perceiving. They were always seeing the circumstance. They were never perceiving the covenant. They were always seeing the obstacle, but they were never seeing the opportunity. They were always seeing the problem, but they were never perceiving his provisions. And because of it, they sabotaged their own promise. Because of it, many of them did not see the promise. They didn't walk into it. They didn't witness it. They didn't touch it. They didn't claim hold of it after God had emphatically declared, it's yours. Do you know how crazy that is? And if it don't sound crazy to you, it might be because you're right there in that same vein. But this should make you cringe to be that close, to go through, they've been through persecution, slavery. Just to give up when you're this close. And it's not because they didn't have God's consent. It's not because they didn't have God's approval or God's authority. They had the proper permission, but they didn't have the proper perception.
Wow.
Our thoughts are intrinsically connected to our outcome. Our outlook determines our outcome. It is a necessity that we learn to not see but perceive. There is a difference between seeing and perceiving. I love Isaiah 43 and 19. Isaiah 43 and 19 says this. It starts off, it just jumps right into it, Gwen. It says, see? It says, see? I am doing something new. I am doing something new. I am doing something new. Now I'm going to do something new. The new thing is right now in the process. I am doing something new.
Amen.
He says it springs up right now. He says, you know what? It's springing up. That means it's past the root level. You should start seeing some fruit. Why aren't you seeing it? It springs forth right now. Stop waiting on it and start witnessing it.
Ah, that's right.
Stop looking and start perceiving. Now, he says springs up right now, and then it just ends it so nicely. Do you perceive it? Not receive it. Perceive. Because before you receive, you got to perceive. He says, do you perceive it? And the Hebrew word, that word perceive means raw. And that struck a chord with me, Quinn. Because have y'all ever heard somebody say aha moment? God is trying to get us to a raha moment. To a place of where we're perceiving. He was not asking them, are you looking? He was asking them, are you understanding?
Yeah.
Perception is not about looking or observing, but perception is all about understanding. That word literally, it doesn't just mean to see, it means to sense. That means I can see it even when it's not in front of me. I sense it. He said it means to sense, to apprehend, or discern, or to distinguish when somebody is doing something. So he's asking them, I'm doing something, can you see it? And let me tell you something about whenever God asks a question. He's not asking a question to get answers. He's asking a question to give answers. He's God. You're not going to feel God in on nothing. He's a sovereign God who sees everything through a sovereign scope. So when he's asking the question, he's not asking because he was curious. He's asking because he's concerned. He's not asking so he can open up dialogue. That's not what he's doing. He's trying to open up the minds of our understanding.
Amen.
He's not asking because he was wondering. But he asking because he was worried. He was worried that he was in the process of doing something and it was going completely over the people's head.
Yes.
Do you perceive it? Not do you see it. Seeing is cool.
Do you understand?
But anybody can see. Okay, let's take a break. I got one more for you. And perceive. Now, as I said, Caleb and the men he were with, they were looking at the same exact thing. But they were seeing two totally different things. One was only seeing, but another one was perceiving. I'm going to give you an example of this. I'm going to show you guys both the same thing. Do you agree that I'm showing you both the same thing? Okay? All right. What you smiling for? Is there something funny about what I wrote? No? What? And you just smiling and you don't even know why. You smiling because she's smiling. Stop messing up my stuff, man. Okay. You both are seeing it, but are you both perceiving it? You're perceiving it. I didn't hear you. Huh? No. You're but you're looking. Do I need to put it closer? Let me blow it up for you. That's what it is. Hold on. That's the problem. It ain't big enough. There we go. See? Right there. Start right there. And then lock off. No. You got it? But you're looking at it. How can she understand it? Cause she's looking at it, but you can't. You guys are you both looking from the same eyes, aren't you? No. She's looking from the eyes of perception. You're looking from the eyes of a physical eye.
Wow.
And a physical eye will always leave you in the dark about the most important details.
Wow.
Amen.
Amen? So read that tab since you're able to really understand it. Read it. No, in English. Give it to them. They ain't gonna understand it.
It says laugh because the person beside you doesn't know
Hey
You
man,
should
I
put me up
appreciate
there,
y'all.
Rock. Wow.
I appreciate y'all.
Wow.
But when I was in school, I had this one teacher, and man, this one teacher, she would deliberately pick on the people that didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like she wouldn't let you leave without knowing. So what I did, I say, man, I'm finna change the game. Watch this. I say, man, I came up with a plan. I got a plan. I say, I'm finna work this thing because I was tired of getting called on and embarrassing myself, right? So I said, I got a plan. And my plan wasn't to fix my lens. I found a way to go around that thing.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? Thus making her call on me.
Yeah.
So I did something. I said, you know what? I'ma just look like I know. I ain't gonna actually worry about learning what she's talking about. I'ma just look like I know. So she gets up in front of the class, man, and y'all start don't make me laugh because I want to pull the face off. She gets up in front of the She giving a lecture, and she say, does everybody understand? I say, It worked. It worked, bro. It worked. So I said, man, I stumbled on a gold mine. I stumbled on a gold mine. So I created a practice of looking like I understood, but not really knowing. Yeah, you getting it in the spirit. So I come to class about 2 weeks later. I got away with it for 2 weeks, Quinn. 2 weeks I got away with it. So here she going. She's doing her observation. She's looking out. I threw a yelp in there, bro. You ain't supposed to call on me. I said yelp. Like I'm really conveying, I'm understanding what you're saying. You know what she said? She said, Lawrence, since you seem to understand it more than everybody else, why don't you explain it to the class?
Wow!
Bro, my heart jumped out my chest. I had to come clean. I was seeing, but I wasn't perceiving. And I think we do that in the spirit on a serious note. I think we do that. I think we've sometimes mastered the art of looking like we know.
Yeah.
But God is looking to see if we're living like we know. And it works for a little while, and it works for the people with the untrained eye, but to the one who knows the integrity of our heart, we're going to call that out. So don't do like I did and try to find a way around fixing the lens, but just fix the lens. It's a difference between seeing and perceiving. Amen. Do y'all agree?
Yes, amen.
Do y'all understand?
Amen.
Do you perceive? Do you perceive? I want to read you something. It's a scripture, and I just thought it was powerful. And I just showed my brother Alton. But the scripture is Matthew 13, 11 through 15, and it is the Message version. And it says, he replied, you've been given insight into God's kingdom. You know how it works. Not everybody has the gift, or this gift, this insight. Really open the doors of the church after this, because I'm not only going to give you the problem, but I'm about to give you the solution right here. Look, he says, you know how it works. Not everybody has this gift, this insight. It hasn't been given to them. Whenever someone has a ready heart for this.
Wow. I'm ready for it.
I thought to get my lens right, I had to be very churchy. I thought to get my lens right, I had to come to church in a two-piece suit. I thought to get my lens right, I had to do everything. I had to cross all the T's and dot the I's. But here it is. God says just have a ready heart. Now, this isn't an excuse to sin. But what it is, it takes away the excuse not to do it. So, because this is something that everyone can do. I always say, Quinn, the best ability is availability. I'll say it again. The best ability, I'm talking about when it comes to the kingdom. The best ability is availability. Making yourself open to what God is saying. He says, whenever someone has a ready heart for this, the insight and understanding flows freely. He don't even give it to us. It just starts to flow. I said, wow, that means it's already in me.
Amen. Amen.
Whatever. So, why people die with potential is right here. Because potential means you have the full ability and capability to do something. But then you die with it. The grave is full of potential. It's a potential that's already on the inside of them, but it hadn't been unlocked. And a lot of times we think the key is God. But the key is our surrenderance. A ready heart. A ready heart. He says, but if there is no readiness, Any trace of receptivity soon disappears. Any trace of even being able to have the right perception disappears. That's why I tell you stories. This is the word of God. I'm not making this up. What? Man, he says, in their present state, they can stare till doomsday. That means till God comes back and crack the sky. You can stare at it that long and you will never get it.
Come on.
Because you're seeing, but you're not perceiving.
All right.
He says, that's why I tell you these stories, to create readiness, to nudge the people towards perceptive insight. In their present state, they can stare to doomsday and not see it. They can listen until they're blue in the face and never get it. I don't want Isaiah's forecast. He's talking about the prophet. The prophet said that this would happen. He says, I don't want Isaiah's forecast repeated all over again. Your ears are open, but you don't hear a thing. Your eyes are awake, but you don't see a thing. The people are, now, excuse me, I didn't say this.
No, come on.
But this is the word. It says the people are blockheads. They stick their fingers in their ears so they won't have to listen. They screw their eyes shut so they won't have to look. So they won't have to look at this. Deal with me face to face and let me heal them. Some people want their lens, bro. Some people desire a broken lens.
Come on, bro.
That tripped me out. He said they do this in attempts so they won't have to deal with me.
Ooh.
And because if they have to deal with me, you're forced to heal. And if you're forced to heal, you're forced to live different. And if you're forced to live different, them same excuses you've been using, you can't use. What he's saying, and man, it all makes sense. Because in that scripture, when he was talking about, we look like grasshoppers, I said, why would they do that? Grasshoppers to giants. Thank you, man of God. Why would they exaggerate the enemy?
Wow.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Why would you exaggerate the enemy and belittle yourself? The scripture just told us. And this is for all of us, including myself. We exaggerate the enemy so that we can have a built-in excuse to stay in our affliction.
Amen.
We exaggerate the enemy so that we can have a built-in excuse to stay in our brokenness. We exaggerate the enemy so that we can have a built-in excuse to stay in those places of comfort and convenience.
Wow.
We actually feel in our mind, if we can amplify the adversary, nobody would blame us for choosing not to confront him. Insecurities, look at this enemy. Nobody would blame us for forfeiting our entire future. Look at what we're going up against. Nobody would blame us for embracing defeat because we were headed for it anyway. Look at this enemy.
Jesus. Preach now, God.
To exaggerate the enemy and belittle yourself is a sign of fear. God says, it's in the Bible. He says, do not fear 365 times. Now that number is significant.
I mean, that is every day.
So every day of your life, he is reminding you, do not fear.
My God, come on.
Do not fear. I know you're looking at some things and it looks scary. Do not fear. I know the enemy is puffing himself up and sometimes you're doing it, but don't fear.
Come on.
Fear not. 365 times. That is something to be spoken about. All right. Let's get back to it. But that was that scripture. And if you guys wanted to notate that was Matthew 13, 11 through 15, and it was the message version. Ooh, I'll pray for me. It's hot. All right. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to the word of God. All right. So, can I share another story with y'all?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that what I was just explaining is called distort. Distort. Now the enemy distorts himself. We distort him. But can I tell you that it starts way back? The issue that they had with exaggerating the enemy came from having a history of abuse, from having a history of failure, of having a history of oppression. And there's a quote that says, the greatest level of oppression is in the mind level. Because far after the physical chains are broken, the chains on the mind are still wreaking havoc.
Jesus. Jesus.
Yeah, it's at the mind level. And it explains why it's at the mind level. It says it's at the mind level because far after the physical chains are broken, the chains that are on the mind are still wreaking havoc. Have you ever saw somebody who's always moving around? I'm talking about a busybody, can't keep still. And I'm about to break bread to why this is happening. They go from place to place. Let me use you. Take the jacket. I'm coming with the illustrations today.
Come on with them illustrations,
Take
Pastor.
the jacket off.
Yes, sir.
And this is my next point. My next point is same mind, same mess. Same mind, same mess. So it struck me interesting that although the children of Israel were delivered from bondage, that they agreed amongst the congregation that it was better to go back to bondage than to face their fears. I say, how in the world does somebody find beauty in bondage? How in the world does somebody find comfort in captivity? It's because of this. Bondage is not a place. Bondage is a mindset.
Set, right.
Same mind, same mess. So look at here. I'm gonna show you how this looks. I want to paint the picture. As you can see, I got a shirt, and it's saying goodbye to my. I call this my Egypt, right? My Egypt. I preached a couple of weeks ago. Do y'all remember me talking about what is your boat?
Yeah.
So let me explain to the people who weren't here. The boat was a thing that you left, but God was calling you back to.
Okay.
Egypt is a little bit different. I want to ask you, what is your Egypt? Now, Egypt is a place that God delivered you from that you want to go back to. You see the difference? The boat is a place that you left that God say, nah, your blessing is over there, go back to it. Egypt is a place that God delivered you from because he didn't want you there, that you are dying to go back to. And if you don't know what your Egypt is, this is my Egypt. I had a real bad habit of running back to hopelessness. I had a real bad habit of running back to brokenness. I had a real bad habit to running back to regrets, fear, anger. I can't remember the other ones.
Depression, bitterness.
Depression was the big one. Y'all know about my battle with depression. So that was one of the biggest ones, and that was one of the hardest ones because it was funny that when I felt depressed, I actually felt empowered.
Yeah.
It was God. I mean, it was the it fueled my anger. And since I wanted to be angry, I needed to hold on to depression. Because believe it or not, this was scary. Actually, being happy was scarier to me than being depressed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because at least when I'm depressed, my expectations cannot be broken or shattered. If I don't have an expectation of you to begin with, when you do me wrong, it don't matter.
Come on.
I'm going to talk that
That's
real.
it. That's it.
Yeah. This is what we need to know. And this is why I ran back to my Egypt. Because every time I would trust somebody, they would betray that trust. And instantly in my head, I was saying, I should have never left Egypt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good.
Man. And I came to this church, man, on a Wednesday night. And I was supposed to teach a lesson, and God said, man, you're not teaching another lesson until you get this correct. No longer will you pray for somebody at this altar, and they asking you for prayer for depression, and you going home and want to kill yourself. I had to fix my lens. And some of us are in this situation right now. So we running back to that old thing. And it's not because it's profitable. It's just because it's predictable. At least we know what we're going to get with Egypt.
Yeah.
At some point, them boys say, man, at least we had pots of meat. That shows us how we will endure an abusive situation as long as we get some type of gratification out of it.
Yeah. Come on.
And the gratification that I got was not caring. And I wanted to not care so I wouldn't hurt.
Speaking of God.
Wow.
I was hurt since I was a kid.
Jeez.
I felt betrayed since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it's because my lens was wrong. I had people all around me that loved me and cared for me. But because my lens was wrong, I seen everything broken. Because my lens was broken. And then it got to a point in time where God told me, either you're going to do something, you're going to have to address this brokenness, or you'll never see your king. Either you're going to address this brokenness, or you're going to die in it. And I didn't want it. I didn't want it to the point I didn't care how I looked. I didn't want it to the point I didn't care what nobody said. I didn't care if you found me out that I'm a priest. About looking good for people. I want to look good for God. I had to do something for myself.
Speak, man.
My mama couldn't do it. My grandma couldn't do it. My brother couldn't do it. My brother couldn't do it. I had to do it myself. And I said, I'm not running back to you. I declared it right here. I have witnesses in the room. I said, today is my last day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no more. I say, when I go home, I will go home, and no matter what, I'm going to find joy, and I'm going to find peace. You're going to stop jacking me for my stuff.
Come on now.
Yeah.
The stuff that, just like the children of Israel, the stuff that God had already emphatically declared is yours.
It's yours.
I won't let nobody come in my house and take my family
Come on, man.
Yeah, come on. Talk about that.
over my dead body.
Yes,
And that's the attitude I had with God. I say, God, you know what? I got an over my dead body attitude. If he killed me to find peace, I'm going to find peace.
My Lord.
Jesus.
You know what, man, y'all done got me all off. Y'all stop it. Woo, I'm passionate about this, though. I'm passionate because I'm telling you, as sure as y'all sitting here and look at me, a lot of y'all going to go home and go right back to the same Egypt. I know it.
Jesus.
I know it.
Jesus.
You might be inspired for a little while. Oh, that was a good motivational speech.
Speak, man.
But when the stuff hit the fan, only the stuff that's on the inside of you can come out.
That's good.
You better get something on the inside of you.
You better take this opportunity to grab hold of what the man of God is saying. I'm not calling myself a man of God because I like the title. I'm calling myself a man of God because this is the responsibility that I cling to. Me talking to y'all with passion like this is because I care about y'all. I'm sick and tired of seeing my people die with potential. Forget potential. Potential ain't our friend. Destiny is.
My Lord.
Purpose is.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of about to do something. We always about to do something.
My Lord.
About to come down. Man, come down then.
Come on.
Come down off your pride. Come down off your foolishness. Come down off your high horse. About to. That word make me sick to my stomach. I'm 35 and I don't want to say about to no more.
Amen.
Say it, preacher.
Man, you twins and we twinning.
You got the white.
For some reason mine was better. I don't know why. But
He playing that.
so I want y'all to see
He did that in crayon.
this. So what that quote was talking about when it's saying the deepest level, where my mic?
The deepest level of oppression is the mental level. This is what it's talking about. Okay, so Egypt represents captivity and bondage, slavery, all these things that are holding you back from your destiny. All these things. But over here is Canaan, right? So you're in Egypt now, and you want to get to Canaan. This is what we tend to do.
Bring all that over here.
So now we're in Canaan.
Yeah.
But the promise don't feel like a promise.
Come on, man. Paint the picture.
The promise ain't matching up with my expectation or God's. But I switch places.
Yeah.
And for some of us, it's but I switched relationships.
Come on now.
Ooh.
But I switch affiliations. But I switch bank accounts.
Yeah.
I switch clothes. I switch diets. I switch my eating habit.
Come on.
I switch my friends. I switch my foes. I switch my God. I switch my hairstyle. I switch my inner circle. I didn't even switch my job. This don't feel like a promise. Because what it is bondage. It's not a place. It's a mindset. So, yes, you changed your address and you changed your area code, but as long as you did not change your attitude, you will always have an Egypt experience in a Canaan land. You change your position and you change your placement. Some of this, I'm not who I used to be. You changed some stuff about you. So you changed your position and your placement, but you did not change your principles or your perceptions. So you will always have an Egypt experience even in a Canaan land. You change your location, you change your living arrangements, but you did not change the way you look at things. So you will always, and I mean always, have an Egypt experience in a Canaan land. So you can change where you live, but until you change how you live, you will always, and I mean always, have an Egypt experience in a Canaan land. Because Egypt is not a place. Egypt is a mindset. It is a place in your mind. And thank you, brother. You can have that $5. Nah, for you, bro, just give me 2 ones and $3. Okay. No, but for real, did y'all see that?
Yes, sir.
And this is what we do. We trade off garbage. And if we're not trading off garbage, we making something that wasn't garbage when we come into his life.
Oh, now you pick it.
It really could have been a promise.
Yes, sir.
But because you came dragging all your mess from the past into this new place, you sabotaged. This is important. This is important. You cannot drag old behaviors into new beginnings.
That's good, Pastor.
You cannot drag old behaviors into new beginnings. Let me. Okay, one more story. I'm finna be out of your house. I'm finna close it down. We're finna shut it down. One more story. So the Asian elephant, it's funny, man, how they train the Asian elephants to be submissive. Yeah, somebody said, oh yeah, who said that? You know about that, huh? It's crazy. So what they do is when the elephant is a baby, they tie the elephant to a pole that has a rope and he's attached to it. So the elephant begins to try to push and pull, and he aggressively tugs until he tires himself out. He might even have scars, but finally for that day he submits. The next day he ready. You know how it is when we young and we don't got that many experiences with failure. We ready, we buck. Oh yeah, you got me yesterday, but you didn't get me today. So they put the same process. They put the elephant on the pole again, tied to a rope, and it's attached to him, and he pulls, and he pushes, and he tugs, and until he tires himself out, and then he finally submits. Now here it is in the spirit. This is where you have to catch it. What they're doing to this elephant is they are preconditioning and training the elephant to submit without a fight. They are preconditioning and training the elephant to submit without a fight. That's not the craziest part. The craziest part is there comes a time when the elephant grows. And now the elephant is actually more powerful than the apparatus he is tied to. But because his spirit is broke,